what's going on. Did you see what's going on? Obviously, you've seen what's going on in California. But the governor gave this creepy speech where he was talking about speculators coming in and talking about what to do with the land of all these homes that have been burnt down while it's still only 6% contained. And he did this little dance like, I've been talking with these, with the governor of Hawaii about what to do. We got some ideas, a speculator.
I mean, I've got questions, sir. I don't find you to be a truth teller based on a long, long history.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly just launched a ruthless joint assault on Gavin Newsom so intense it didn't even spare his signature hair gel, as Rogan responded with raw disbelief and cutting humor, scorching Newsom's hypocrisy and Hollywood-style leadership, while Kelly came in with sharp accuracy, breaking down his record like a prosecutor delivering final arguments. And together they exposed everything from pandemic missteps to ideological confusion in classrooms, revealing Newsom as the ultimate example of style over substance. So if arrogant ambition had a face, they just blasted it on full national display.
Talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
With a big smile on his face. Look at the little wiggle he does with his shoulders. Speculator, watch this. Talking to Josh. Look at this. Look at this little wiggle. It's excited about the possibilities of speculators coming in. And he's saying, we're move forward. We're going to move forward on that. These people lost their homes. A lot of those people don't even have fire insurance because the fire insurance pulled out.
He had no dignity. That's what I was missing. There was no dignity. It just looked like a man desperate for attention. And whenever DeSantis was scoring points on him, he would interrupt over and over to try to talk over the points as just that's like a middle school debate tactic, which is pathetic.
Joe Rogan leaned forward in his studio chair like someone who just witnessed a UFO touchdown in his backyard and saw the pilot step out in a suit smoother than reality itself. Gavin Newsom, a name alone that made Rogan shake his head with an expression that screamed disbelief laced with adrenaline, as there was no need for build-up since the mere mention of California's governor launched him straight into a full-on critique of what he described as one of the most theatrical political figures in today's landscape.
And to these illegals who are now getting Medicaid in California, thanks to him. Illegals. So this guy's priorities are not with keeping people safe at all. He doesn't care about the crime, about the illegals, and obviously not about the fires, which after the fact, again, hey, sure, could somebody let me know how that happened?
He began with the obvious, the hair, as Rogan laughed not out of humor but because it was simply too flawless, saying Newsom's hair looked like it was locked in place with industrial-strength gel and presidential aspirations, joking that if you threw the governor into a hurricane everything around him would be destroyed, yet that hair would remain untouched like it had diplomatic immunity. And the hair wasn't just a style decision, but a symbol for the man himself. Glossy, molded, immune to disorder, and entirely disconnected from reality's storm.
President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a fucking con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids, being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold, narrative-driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being.
Then came the pandemic and Rogan's tone shifted, now laced with the kind of fury only hypocrisy can provoke, as he tore into Newsom's lockdown decisions like a surgeon with a personal vendetta, describing how one moment Newsom was enforcing strict stay-at-home mandates, shutting down businesses, closing schools and halting church gatherings, and the next he was exposed dining without a mask at an upscale restaurant, sipping wine with lobbyists while the rest of California was stuck eating cold leftovers over Zoom, with Rogan painting the scene like a dystopian dark comedy, the ruler indulging in luxury from a tower while the citizens are told to reheat hope and sanitize with their own tears.
We begin with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who spent the weekend trying to avoid responsibility as the fires were still burning by dropping by the Pod Save America podcast for an attempt to clean up his own image?
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. My own team saying what happened. And I want to get the answers. And
you're the governor.
He ridiculed the reasoning behind closing beaches and outdoor gyms as if fresh air had somehow become a biological threat, saying it seemed like Newsom cared less about actual science and more about appearances, where if something looked like leadership, sounded like leadership, and earned claps on Twitter, it passed the Gavin standard, all while people were losing their jobs, children were falling behind academically, and mental health was deteriorating. Yet at least Newsom still had a well-designed press conference background.
Did you see what Gavin Newsom said to him?
No.
Gavin Newsom said that you should be posting this. We're going to make it illegal. I'm going to sign a law. And he said, "Professor, suck on these nuts."
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Elon retweets altered Kamala Harris campaign. Says manipulating voices in an ad like this should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. And then he says underneath, "I checked with renowned world authority, Professor, suck on these nuts." And he said parody is legal in America.
Oh my God.
What a wild dude.
Wow.
What a wild dude. Because he's not scared of those folks.
Then Rogan dove into California's homelessness crisis, shaking his head like someone trying to decode a riddle scribbled by madmen, as tents, syringes, and human filth covered major cities like a twisted parody of progress, while Newsom continued insisting the problem was getting better, and Rogan questioned how billions could be spent while the streets still resembled a scene from Mad Max with recycling bins, saying it wasn't compassion allowing people to decay on sidewalks but sheer incompetence disguised as empathy, with Gavin Newsom playing the starring role in America's longest-running failure production, before shifting into Newsom's environmental hypocrisy, mocking the man who scolded the nation about clean energy while flying around the country attending climate events like he was emceeing the Eco-Oscars, and calling it laughable to see someone warn about sea levels rising while expanding his beachside estates and basing legislation on pure fantasy.
Newsom was basically almost burned alive. The governor of California. Take a listen.
We went up to one of the canyons on the fire, sitting there feeling we're a good quarter mile away. I'm not making this up, video to bear it out. All of a sudden, we see an ember, hits the tree goes on fire, 100 seconds. God is my witness, may have been 90 seconds. The house is in flames. I have embers of flames. They're taking it off my hair, and we're running back into the car. Winds are swirling around. Garbage cans were in the air, and we were getting the hell out of there.
Okay, why is he saying his God is my witness and I'm not making this up before he tells the story? Truly,
He portrayed Newsom as a walking contradiction, constantly striking poses beside solar panels while his own state dealt with blackouts, water shortages, and policies so convoluted even Tesla threw in the towel and relocated to Texas, a moment Rogan clearly relished as he rattled off the list of companies fleeing California like it was the final attendance call. Tesla, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, all gone, saying it felt like watching the smartest kids leave the party while Gavin spun records at a prom nobody wanted to attend, mocking him for acting like California was a paradise when in reality it had become a sunny warning sign, and then he zeroed in on taxes, baffled at how a state with the highest tax rates could still offer some of the worst infrastructure, pointing to potholes, blackouts, and water limits as signs that residents were paying premium rates for VIP service but getting ushered through the back alley, joking that Californians were shelling out luxury-level money for a government that ran like a bargain app staffed by philosophy majors.
We're talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state,
and you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
different answers. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story.
so you decided the thing to do would be to go on Pod Save America to talk about it because it's in the end, it's all about you. This is another David Muir, folks. He is just as vain and worried about his image in the middle of this emergency as David Muir with his little fake fireman's jacket and clothespins.
And just when it seemed like he was finished, Rogan plunged into the social policies, criticizing the agendas being pushed in classrooms, the shifting definitions of basic concepts, and the justice system experiments that had basically turned shoplifting into a casual pastime, saying it felt like California was being run by a brainstorming group of hyperactive TikTok creators with Gavin Newsom as their overly self-assured mouthpiece, whose condescending and overly polished tone made him sound like he was trying out to narrate a luxury car ad, with Kelly adding that Newsom didn't connect with the public but rather lectured them, and everything he said came across with a smug, self-praising flair only possible from someone who hadn't pumped their own gas in 10 years, comparing listening to him with enduring a motivational seminar run by someone who thought catchy phrases were real solutions and arrogance was a leadership trait. as she unpacked his fixation on image, saying Gavin wasn't really a governor but more of a walking campaign advertisement, with every move, line, and gesture crafted for visual appeal. Yet the core issue, she argued, was that while Newsom had perfected the politics of perception, he had completely failed at the politics of real results. Because California wasn't thriving, it was merely enduring in spite of him.
And on X, I addressed Gavin Newsom personally. He follows me, so I tagged him. And I'm going to be honest, I begged him to please stop this for all the reasons stated on our YouTube feed. And he didn't get back to me. But I think I was shooting at the wrong public official who followed.
She then tackled his COVID track record with a different tone, saying Newsom didn't use the pandemic to safeguard the public but instead to broaden his authority and control the messaging, turning emergency powers into lifestyle directives while conveniently making exceptions for himself and his political allies, painting a portrait of a state where repeat criminals roamed free, where minor theft became de facto policy, and where police were demonized by lawmakers who never had to actually walk the neighborhoods they governed, with Kelly declaring that Newsom's justice system didn't aim for fairness but instead fostered chaos, arguing he wasn't fixing anything. He was dismantling it, then slicing through his public safety approach, education reforms, and almost comical housing initiatives, with each segment of her takedown delivered like a legal brief, backed with evidence accuracy, and a tone that made it clear Gavin Newsom wouldn't survive 5 minutes under genuine media interrogation, calling him the media's golden child not due to results, but because he fit the right ideological mold.
Governor Gavin Newsom told the Los Angeles Times Panera would not be exempt from the law. The spokesperson also denied a claim the Bloomberg piece, which cited sources close to the matter, that Newsom pushed for an exemption that applies to businesses that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item, calling the report absurd. So is it a fake story?
Or is it something that they
might have corrected
course quickly? Yeah.
And she didn't stop there, calling out his showboating on national matters and his constant habit of dragging Florida and Texas into every speech like a reflexive distraction, arguing that instead of actually addressing California's problems, he spent his time tweeting about other states to create a contrast while ignoring the collapse happening under his own watch, saying it felt less like leadership and more like influencer behavior, insisting that Gavin was a performer at heart, with Kelly even mocking his clumsy efforts to connect with everyday voters by saying he couldn't relate to regular Americans even if you dropped him in a diner with a map and clear instructions, claiming his reality was so insulated he probably still thought gas prices were published in glossy magazines, and that every policy and soundbite he delivered stemmed from a worldview crafted in elite strategy rooms and polished by media advisors, closing with a cutting verdict that Newsom wasn't dangerous because he was evil, but because he genuinely believed his own headlines, convinced that presentation could stand in for depth, that applause equaled approval, and that photo ops translated into progress, calling him the definition of political self-obsession, repackaged and marketed as leadership.
Big Daddy got out there with his bazooka and was like, I solved this problem, and you governors better freaking go along or you're gonna get it. And I'm not kidding around. I'll read you what he posted. Stand by. It's amazing. Okay, he posts the following. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women.
As Rogan and Kelly each set down their rhetorical torches, one thing became undeniable. Gavin Newsom wasn't just a governor, he was a symbol, as Kelly dismantled the notion that California's education system was leading the country by describing it instead as a slow-motion academic breakdown wrapped in trendy progressive language, arguing that under Newsom's leadership, classrooms had turned into ideological war zones where actual education took a backseat to political posturing, pointing out that students couldn't read at grade level but were still being taught confusing identity abbreviations and theories they couldn't even spell, mocking Newsom for bragging about educational equity while families abandoned public schools in massive numbers, saying parents didn't want buzzwords, they wanted arithmetic, and when they demanded outcomes, all they got was a glossy brochure on emotional intelligence and a higher property tax bill, comparing the whole experience to ordering a steak and being handed a coloring book.
So the important thing is, how is his hair? Did it or did it not have embers in it? And you tell me, what the answer is to my question about what the press would be doing to Ron DeSantis if he swung by the Ruthless podcast. In the middle of the hurricane, the fires are still burning. There's zero purpose in going on Pod Save America other than to burnish his own image.
And of course, that's all he cares about, right? That's why he tells this harrowing story.
Joe Rogan picked it back up, doubling down on Newsom's talent for rebranding failure as forward-thinking leadership, laughing at how every new crisis in California was paired with a catchy slogan, like Gavin was marketing disaster for social media clout. Where power outages were reframed as energy transitions, crime spikes were spun as justice reform, and tax increases were pitched as future-focused investments, saying only Newsom could oversee rolling blackouts and still smile like he was unveiling a new amusement park, before adding that the real joke was Gavin Newsom actually believing this track record made him qualified to lead the entire country, imagining Newsom launching his presidential campaign like a guy selling timeshares in a hurricane zone, flashing that practiced grin, waving his hands through chaos and congestion, and vowing to bring the same kind of progress to America that he brought to California, with Rogan shaking his head and saying, if that doesn't scare people, nothing will.